I created a physical symptoms file specifically. I didn't, I guess we could just focus on physical symptoms for now. Is that all right?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, cool. Um, so one of the first things we did is we actually created a list with all the physical symptoms. Like there's a bunch of them. So if we have like uh, under here, so oops, sorry. The thing with Swift UI is you kind of it's you kind of you don't have to declare the data type that you're putting in the list. You just put like strings in the list, for example, like all the symptoms, and it'll show, it'll recognize that all the symptoms in the list are strings. So if we create like a physical symptoms list, right? And just to let you guys know, if you guys don't know about Swift, like don't know too much about Swift UI or just Swift in general, let means that after you declare and initialize this list, it'll be a constant. So you won't be able to change it afterwards. So if this was var instead of let, I believe you would be able to change the like the values of the list in future, say in the code in the future. But once I create the list, it's going to just stay that way. So if we think of some physical symptoms that dementia patients could have, um, I guess I'll just list like two. Like some of them are like an inability to wash their body, and then also maybe they have trouble putting on clothes. So we can start off with that for now. We don't have to have a completely extensive list. Um, and also to accompany the list, we also have this. We also have another list called at state var p checks, and essentially what this is going to, notice how this one has, oops, sorry, no semicolon. This one has var instead of let. This is because for each symptom, we're going to have a false statement at first, right? And then, so I've false for each
Yes.
symptom. Oops, sorry. State has
Each,
to be capitalized as well.
yeah, SD has to be capitalized. So each element of P checks is going to match to each element of P symptoms, like the array, because what we currently have in the list is the check marks are unchecked, so their value would be false. Because what we would think is instead of storing it as like a string or an integer, we would say, oh, this symptom, is it true? Is it false? If you have check marked it, now the value inside P checks would be turned to true. And that's why Jacob used var instead of a let. And so when we actually get to the core data part, we might also change the let, but for now, the array for P symptoms is not going to be able to change.
Great. Um, yeah, so we have that list right there, and then I guess we could work on the like actual view, maybe actual view right now. So um, uh, so generally we have geometry reader, right? Just so that it makes it easier to sort of like adjust the view of all the things on the screen. And so I think I showed you guys this. All right. So geometry in, and then what we actually have is within the geometry view. Oh, see, it's giving me an error because I don't have anything in it. But currently what we have is we have a Z stack, and you guys have sort of heard of an H stack and a V stack, right? So H stack is if I were to draw it out on, or if it's to be on the screen, H stack would have certain items in a or a horizontal row, because H for horizontal, and then VStack will have a vertical row. ZStack is a little bit different. It kind of like overlaps views so that you can sort of like put them on top of each other. And so this is important. You guys could kind of see in the example we showed you, right, with physical symptoms, how we could click anywhere. We could kind of click anywhere on the symptom and it would check the box off. And so that's sort of why we have the Z-stacks. So within the Z-stack, we also have a V-stack as well. And let's just add the title. So at the top, we probably want to have the text physical symptoms, just to indicate that we are, just so the user knows that we are referring to the they are looking at the physical symptoms. And then you could do Command Shift, and then you could do show Swift UI inspector, and then you could change this text to probably large title, since this is the title. And maybe I could show this in Canvas. Let's see.
Yeah, the Z-stack would be there so that we can keep the background color the same throughout. Because there's this weird thing. If we incorporate lists, which is what we'll do in a moment, if we incorporate the list, they actually don't transfer the background color to each cell in the list. So the cells remain white. And like a little thing that we found online is if you have a Z stack, it actually changes everything as well.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's going to load.
Yeah, Canvas is really slow sometimes.
Yeah, it's a bit iffy, but okay, we can sort of move on from that. So we have the text, and then we can also have, so if we're going to list all the symptoms in a row, right, we're probably going to tell them, select all of the symptoms that apply. So select all that apply right under, oh, there we go. And Canvas is working now. So we have physical symptoms and select all that apply underneath. Okay. And then what we did to display the symptoms, right? So we had a list. And so in the list, we had a for each loop. Okay. And this is going to go through like all of the contents like of the list. And so it's going to go from 0 self.pchecks.count.
Yeah. So what that basically means is we have to have a self just to show that we are calling the pchecks that's currently in this struct. And the dot count just is how many elements are in that array. So for however many elements there is, then that's however many times the for loop will go through. In Swift UI, it's called for each loop, but this acts basically the same way as a for loop in Java or any other like coding language that you might have seen before.
And so we're going to have, so yeah, what Ellie said, it's like a for loop. So it's going to go through each item, and then we can tell it to do, so within, for each item, it's going to display text, and then it's going to display P symptoms of I. So I is sort of, sorry, so I is sort of the index, right? So I is going to show so index of an array starts at 0. So it'll show the inability to wash body first, and then trouble putting on clothes. So I covered the canvas a little bit just to expand the editor, but it'll show this currently right now. And so that's kind of a cool thing. And then Yeah, so that's how you display each of the symptoms. But if we wanted to say, add a button, let's say we wanted to add a button uh, that has a certain, and you want the button to be like a check mark essentially, right? So I think, do we originally have it as toggles? Is that right?
Yeah, we originally had these as toggles. So, Jacob, do you think you could expand the canvas view a little bit?
Yeah,
I don't know if you
sorry.
guys have noticed, but for the list view, it looks a lot like the lists that you might see in the Apple Messages app or the System Preferences app, because that's just the built-in type of list that we would see. If you wanted a different list type, we would actually have to do some more code, and those are like little hacks that SwiftUI developers have found. But basically, what we originally did in the settings thing, if you have like notifications, do you want to turn it on or do you want to turn it off? For do not disturb, same thing. It's the green button that allows the toggle to switch back and forth between gray and green. So we were originally thinking of that instead of the check marks. So this is actually something that I want to bring up as well. What do you guys think would be more intuitive for like elderly people to use, like toggles or check marks? Because both of them, so a toggle would be gray before they press it, and a check mark would also be gray and like white it out before they actually press it and show the check mark. Yeah, do you guys have any comments on that?
I was just wondering if we were to do the toggles every time, or like if daily they want to log into the app, would they every single day like do a new list? Or like, for example, if a dementia patient was kind of facing not exactly the same symptoms the next day, maybe half of them were the same as the earlier day, would they be able to save those from the previous day and just change it if we use toggle? Or would it completely refresh and have them do it again?
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So it actually, so toggles and check marks can work the same way. It depends on how we code it. What we were thinking and what we have currently right now is we give them a standardized list of like 10 symptoms and they stay there the whole day. And actually not just the whole day, they stay there all the time, right? And so every single time you submit it, then like the next day, or maybe even within that same day, you do it again because you experience more symptoms, it would still give you the same list. And if we were to add a symptom that they suddenly experience at like 2 p.m. of a certain day or something, like, oh, I lost my keys and I don't know where it went. So, and then they added that. What we would code the app to be like is we would keep the added symptom the next time that they visit the app. So it would stay there. But this is something actually else we need to think. Should we have the added symptoms at the bottom after the standardized list of 10, or should we have it at the top? And should the list be alphabetized? Yeah, those things are just things we need to take into consideration. But for now, all the added symptoms will stay in the app. Yeah, everything will stay the same.
Okay, so are any more comments, or are we good to go? Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so to complete the button, so the button is basically going to check this, it's going to change these false values to true. So when I click inability to wash, in the inability to wash body, right? It's going to change this first value of false to true. So to do that, within the button, we want a certain action to commence. So we'll have self.pchecks of I, which is the index, right? And then we'll have dot toggle. And dot toggle isn't actually it's not actually the toggles, but it'll just change it from false to true, or true to false, depending on like the state it's in currently. And so after that, okay, and then we'll have if self dot p checks of I, and then we'll have the image. Okay, so when it said, when I put the image in here and I do check, I'm going to put it specifically in here, check mark dot square dot fill. I believe this is coming from SF Symbols. So if you guys do, I think SF Symbols comes when you download Xcode. Is that correct?
You
So-
actually have to download it separately, so it's
Oh,
Xcode and you
okay.
just have to download SF symbols. But it's really useful. I suggest you guys all download it. Yeah, because you get a lot of like symbols to use. Yeah,
Yes.
and also, we do have only like 4 minutes left of this meeting. But we can just quickly finish this so that you guys can see what the button's like.
Yeah, for sure. So the checkmark.square.fill is sort of just something that's included with SF Symbols. I forgot, sorry, if you had to download it. And so you can kind of see it right there, but I don't think it will work right now. I'm not sure if it's not necessarily interactive because it's just an image currently. Also, I think it would look better. So a spacer just basically puts a space in between these two items. So currently the checkbox and the the text is kind of close to each other. So if we want a little bit space in between that, we would put a spacer just so that it's a little bit farther apart. And so, and then we also would have the else statement. We would have the else statement image system. Oops, sorry. Name square dot fill. Okay, so the difference between this is that so basically what it's checking is that if this is true, then it's going to check mark it. And but if it's false, then it's going to leave it blank. So
yeah, currently we have it false.
yes.
And so so square dot fill shows that there's no check mark there, but with the check mark dot square dot fill there is a check. So that's when we press it. Actually, do you mind if I share my screen? I just want to show them.
Yeah, quick. For sure.
Let's go to the mental one. So we'll be able to see the check marks, and this is what actually Jacob was just building. So when you click on it, then the checkmark.square.fill shows up, and without it, it doesn't. It's just a regular square.fill.
Yeah.